It's been 9 years since the first iPad mini was released. In fact, most of the earlier iPad minis have now grown up to become iPad Pros. And now in 2021, there's a new iPad in town. And with its sixth generation, it has finally lost its father's ugly chin and forehead and really come into its own. So who is this for? And can it make friends with a keyboard? That's what we are going to find out today. So let's start with price. Now in Australia, this costs 749 Australian dollars for the 64GB model, and it costs 979 Australian dollars for the 256GB model. It depends on what you're planning to do with this, but generally speaking, I would say that 64GB should be enough for what the iPad mini really is basically a media consumption device. They've got the more powerful processor in here, but the screen is still small. Even though you can use a keyboard with it, its usability is going to be and remain somewhat limited in the way of getting any real productive work done on it. So unless you're planning to edit photos or 4K videos on it, I would say that the 64 gig model, this thing won't stop beeping for some reason, should be enough for most people. So I'm not going to discuss the specs in a lot of detail because they have a pretty good comparison tool on the Apple website, and I'm sort of assuming at this point you've probably already looked at it. Just at a high level, this has the latest Apple chip on it, the A15 Bionic. It has center stage and it works with the second generation Apple Pencil, and it also has a liquid retina display, and the display size is 8.3 inches. So it's big enough to do most of your media consumption on, but it's not quite big enough to use as a proper laptop. If you think back maybe 10 or 15 years, back in the day there was devices released called netbooks, and Asus had a particular model called the EEE PC or the Triple E PC, and you can go and Google that. But using this thing with the keyboard reminds me of that Triple E PC. Of course, those Triple E PCs were really ghastly and extremely slow. I mean, you could probably finish your taxes in the amount of time it booted up. It did come with an SSD, but given how the processor speeds and memory speeds were back in the day, they were really slow. This isn't that. So imagine an EEE PC or a netbook, but 50 times faster, and that's what this pretty much is. Now this still has a 60 Hz refresh rate. That's probably one thing that I think a lot of people were a little bit disappointed with, and they were expecting Apple to go the extra mile and make it 120 gigahertz display. 120 Hertz display, not gigahertz quite yet. But that hasn't happened. It's still a 60 Hertz display. If you don't use any other 120 Hertz displays ever, so if your phone isn't the high refresh rate, then you're not going to notice the difference. This feels perfectly smooth as you're navigating through it, right? So Apple has, really mastered their iOS UI over the years, and it does feel really smooth. But the moment you touch or pick up, a display that's faster, for instance, I use the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, and that's what I'm filming this with, in fact. The moment you pick that up, you're actually going to start seeing that jittery, jarring sort of that kind of a feel. So it really depends, if this matters to you. And I think over a period of time, initially when I opened it up and started using it, I was a little bit kind of maybe, I did notice the fact that it's not a 120 Hz display. But over a period of time, my brain kind of recalibrates to expect that, and it sort of, smooths out the frames, on behalf of Apple. Now, while I'm talking about displays, if I didn't talk about the jelly scrolling issue, I would probably get a lot of angry comments from people. So I'm going to touch on that very briefly. For people who actually are not across what it is when you scroll up and down on this iPad very quickly, there's a sort of a noticeable lag on one side catching up with the other when scrolling. So you can't see it in camera. I'm not even going to try to show it to you, but if you've read up about this, and feel free to Google it if you think that this might be a problem for you. It's really just, it comes down to the way they've built this iPad and the quality of this display, right? It's two things. And there's nothing you can do to make it go away. And it's not like you won't notice it. I have noticed it when scrolling, and I wasn't trying to notice it effectively. I just, as you use this, you are going to see that come up, and you're going to see that happen. Whether or not it's an issue for you will depend on, how nitpicky you are with these things. So, let me give you an example to help you better understand that. So imagine that you buy a BMW M5. They're expensive cars. You get into it, and then you start driving it, and you find out that it's making a squeaking noise. Now you take it back to the service center, and they say that, well, this is an inherent issue with BMWs, where if you drive it on the highway, it's going to make a very slight squeaky noise. Okay, it's not going to stop you from using it. It's not going to stop you from driving it. It's not necessarily a safety issue, but on the other hand, there's nothing they can do to make it go away. It's going to remain there. Will it affect you? Well, it depends. Over a period of time, you'll probably stop noticing it. But on the other hand, is it disappointing? Yes, absolutely, because you've paid a good amount of money for this car and you expect it to work, almost flawlessly for that money. So that's what it is with the jelly scrolling. It's not going to get in the way of what you're doing, but it is a little bit disappointing to see it on a device that costs, up to $1,000 in Australia. So you wouldn't expect that from that sort of display when you have much cheaper devices. You can get tablets now for $500 to $600, which work perfectly well. So it's yes, it's a little bit disappointing. It's not going to get in the way of you using it. Now, who is this iPad really for, and what is it good for? In my personal experience, what I can use this for without being frustrated is some light gaming. I've been playing Asphalt 8 on this, and it works really well because it's got that powerful A15 processor in it. So it's definitely got no issues keeping up. I can probably type up an email or two with this super nifty keyboard that I found on Amazon, and I can watch YouTube videos. I can surf the internet, that sort of stuff. I'm not going to really try and edit any videos on this because the screen is too small. You can, however, connect this to a docking station. So I've tried connecting this to my Dell docking station, and it integrates perfectly well with that. So I can use my mouse, I can use my keyboard, and I can use the screen. Of course, it doesn't, it's going to letterbox it. You can't see the full screen. It's not going to fill up your full 4K monitor. So yes, there are a number of things you can use this for. It is a powerful computer if you want to connect it up with the screen, but otherwise by itself, it's mainly a gaming and media consumption device. So before I move on to the keyboard case, I just want to talk about who this is for and why you would buy one in 2021. Most people, if you really think about it, have a number of devices in their home, and most people would have a phone. They would have a laptop of some sort, maybe a work laptop or a personal laptop, and then they probably have a tablet, but not always. So if you give people a choice to have a smaller phone, I think most people, you would find, will actually take that. And they'll say, yes, please give me a smaller phone because that's a device I carry around with me all day long. I'm going to have to, put it in my pocket. I'm going to have to take it to places. I want to pull it out quickly, take photos with it, put it back. I'm not going to do a lot of work. I'm not going to try and type up long emails on the phone or anything like that. Yes, an occasional WhatsApp chat or an SMS, but that's it. So if you then shrink your phone, the problem is that you can no longer consume media as effectively. If you want to watch a video, read some news on the internet and things like that, you're not going to be able to do those things efficiently. So that's where the iPad mini actually comes in, that it fills that gap. If you don't want to carry around a phablet or a large phone, I'm old, so I call it a phablet, then this is where it fits. And I think Samsung is kind of trying to enter this space with their Galaxy Fold, and I think they've done a good job actually. So this is probably about the size of a Galaxy Fold expanded, or maybe a little bit smaller in fact. If you fold this in half, it'll roughly be the size of a little bit larger than a normal smartphone. So I think that's what they're targeting, and I think it makes a whole lot of sense. If you want to have a small phone like an iPhone mini, for instance, then you can probably go ahead and buy that, carry it around with you all day, and then buy an iPad mini to just consume media on. So I think that use case makes perfect sense, and I think Apple has really nailed it in terms of the screen size when it comes to that. You can pick this up and take it somewhere quickly, use it, put it back, and it's not going to get in the way of anything you're doing. You're not going to feel the weight or feel the volume of it too much. So last but not least, should you buy the iPad mini 6? Probably not. Let me explain why. So this tablet in Australia costs $750 for the 64GB model. Fortunately, we have a company that offers much better value for money on tablets. It's Apple. So for 900 Australian dollars, you can pick up the iPad Air, which has a bigger screen, 11-inch, but it's not so big that it's unwieldy. it has a more premium panel, and it has first-party accessory support. So you get keyboards, cases, and all those other accessories that help you use it as a laptop sometimes if you want to, which you can't do with this. And I think this is not talked about very often. But if you want your dollar to go even further than that, you can actually look at Apple's website, and often enough they have iPad Pros from 2020 that are refurbished, and they sell them for 900 to 920 Australian dollars. So I'm talking about $150 on top of what you're paying, and that's going to get you a larger screen, an 11-inch screen, still a handy little iPad. I mean, the 11 inch isn't that big. It's going to get you first-party accessory support. It's going to get you a 120 hertz screen. And I think that's incredible value for money. And it's only last year's iPad. It's not that slow. I mean, for most of the things you're going to do with this, the iPad Pro is a fantastic deal. Now, in closing, I just want to say that you might be sitting there thinking, yes, but I don't want an 11-inch tablet. Okay, well, fair enough. If that's the case, if you absolutely must have an 8.3-inch tablet, and I would really like to know why, not really. I'm sure you have your reasons. If you must have an 8.3-inch tablet, this is not going to let you down in any way. So the iPad Mini 6 is going to, perform well under your usage circumstances, whatever they may be. Even if you want to use it as a laptop once in a while, it's going to be fine. It's going to do what you need it to do. But just consider those options. So consider the iPad Air, consider the refurbished iPad Pro from 2020 or even earlier than that. And I think all those are really incredible, value for money in comparison to this iPad. I think this is overpriced by about $100 to $150. I hope Apple realizes that soon, or maybe they'll upgrade the specs to match the price. But right now, you can do much better for your money. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and please leave me a like and subscribe if you did. Till next time.